Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. That will help YouTube to promote my content. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those as well, and I will respond. Thank you again. Christmas time is coming, so this is going to be my next project. I actually made this back in 2007 for my daughter when she was just 4 years old at the time. And I'm going to make another one now. This one's going to be for sale. Stick around, watch this week's project, and see how it was made. Originally, the plans called for using a 2x4. I had some here, but I found it was too dry and brittle, and I got too much tear out. So I ended up switching to hardwood. Still using 2x4s, ended up gluing 3 of them together for a segmented piece with a piece cut out of the center piece to allow for the handle for the Nutcracker. So I did some work off camera here. I cut a tenon on this end so I could mount it in my 4-jaw chuck. I'm still keeping my live center up on this end. It's a good idea, especially when the piece is this long. So I glued the 3 pieces of hardwood together, and according to the pattern, I left the center piece I cut into 2 pieces, a top and a bottom, to leave room for my lever for the Nutcracker itself. And then I've gone ahead and rounded it up. Continue, I've got a little bit more smoothing to do, but I'll start shaping it first, and then we'll come back and take a look at what it looks like. Again, I'll make the pattern available if anyone is interested, but this is the pattern, so all I do is I hold this up, and then I make some marks on the wood to where key points are going to be, like I'll show you here in a minute. So these represent kind of transition points in the pattern. So what I will do is I'll mark these on my wood, and then I'll cut to the right distance and then can basically connect the dots. So you'll see here now that I've transferred these lines onto my pattern. So for example, these 2 lines here represent a belt, a ruffle, a belt, a transition from the body to the head, hat, ruffle, the bottom of the pom-pom, and the top of the pom-pom. So those give me kind of just the reference points at which I'm going for. So now what I'll do is I'll use a combination of my parting tool to cut down on each one of these lines and get it down to the depth that I want it. And then from there, I'll basically, like I said, I'll just connect the dots. So again, here I am using my parting tool to cut down on these lines that I've marked. It may look like I'm not paying much attention to how deep I go, but what I'm not showing is I do go back with my caliper gauges and check the depth occasionally just to make sure that it's the right depth. Now these 2 are going to go in quite far because this is actually the very top. This is eventually going to be cut off. So I'll leave this a little bit thicker for now, just until I get some of the others turned, some of the other areas. Now I'll start shaping between the lines. Now that I've made my reference lines to the right depth, I'll just go back with using a combination of my carbide tools, my parting tool, to cut down and shape in between these reference lines. Now you can start to see it taking shape. Here's again the ruffle on the bottom, his belt, top of his neck, the ruffle in his hat, and then this will be the pom-pom. So how I transform the pattern to the block of wood, I use my caliper gauges. So I would measure key points, like for example, the width of this pom-pom. So that's my calipers. So I would just turn it down until I got to that level with my parting gauge. And then again, I would just take it down all around. So I did that in key spots. Here at the top of the pom-pom, top of the hat, top of the head, top of the shoulders, belt, and waist. So there, I think I've got it to all my key dimensions. I'll just smooth this out a bit more, sand it up a bit. I got a bit of tear out here along the edge. I'll fix that up. And the body will be pretty well turned at that point. My opinion, he still looks a little thick right through the shoulders here, so I may take that down a bit. A little bit. According to my measurements, it's still a little thick there at the shoulders. Yeah, I like that shape better. Okay, the Santa body is complete. Now I'm going to start on the arms. So I just started with a square block of wood. I'll make it round and then we'll start shaping it from there. Now I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the body. So I have the pattern here. So I'm just going to hold the pattern up to the blank and then make some marks as to where critical measurements need to be. So there are the marks. So this will be the hand, the cuff, and then the rest of the arm. Okay, so that's pretty well one arm done. I'll just cut a little bit more off here, which is the bottom of his hand. It's supported back here. I could probably cut that right off. That way I can work the very end. I'm just going to smooth this out a little bit more, put a little more definition here on the cuff, and that arm will be done. Okay, we finished the turning part of the Santa. So this is the body here, and I've gone ahead off camera and I took this handle that I showed you earlier. You can see that there, which is the actual Nutcracker. I drilled a 1/4 inch hole through the body of the Santa and put a dowel through it. That'll be the pivot point for my Nutcracker itself. That will also be the pins at which I put the arms on the shoulder. I'll do that in a moment. The other thing that I've done is I've turned my 2 legs. You may notice one is shorter than the other. That's because I've already cut this section off, which will become the boot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it at an angle and cut it in half, and that will go on the front here, and that will become the boot for the leg. So I'm going to go ahead and do one of them, and then we'll come back and take a look at that. And I'm just cutting those on the bandsaw. And to give you an idea, I'm following the pattern here. So this is the bottom that I cut off, and then you cut these 2 pieces out of it. I apologize, my fingers are in the way. You cut these 2 pieces out of it, and then this piece ends up pivoting around here, and then you can see that becomes part of the boot. And that'll become clear here in just a moment. So now I have the first leg cut and the toe. And you can see how they just fit together. So that will be glued into place like that. And that will form the toe. So just a reminder, this was a piece that was on the leg like this. And then I cut it off on the bandsaw and then turned it 90 degrees. That will be glued into place and that will become the boot. So I didn't show all of the rest of the piecing together on the legs and the feet, but here it is together. I just repeated the same process on the other leg to make the other boot. The arms were a lot simpler. They just cut a piece out and then were glued together. The 2 arms were not identical because obviously if you're hanging your arms down, they're not going to be the same. So, same length, but not necessarily the same angle. So I just cut out the pieces to what I thought looked right. And if you remember, there was a dowel running through the body. The arms are glued onto those pivot points. And you can see here, looking at the body, that I had to shape the upper part of the arm to match the body so that there's not much of a gap. I did end up using a bit of wood filler. I had sanded it down to get it to match, but I'm matching 2 curved sections together. So after I got it on the pin, I did end up using a tiny bit of wood filler. But it will be painted anyways, so you'll never see that. Now that it's all assembled, I just do a little bit more sanding, and then I will be ready to start painting. So for the base of the Santa, I've glued a block of wood onto a waste block. So I just use hot melt glue. I've got it in a metal dish. I heat it on the stove and then just dip the waste block into it and then glue this on. So I'll make this round, put a small decorative bead on it, and that will become my base. Here I have the Santa complete along with the base. So now I'm just going to get ready to mount the Santa on the base. So in order to do that, I'm just going to put 2 nails in his feet. You'll see why here in a minute why I'm doing this. Doesn't really matter where they go. Not super critical. Make sure they're straight. Then I'm just going to take a pair of pliers, cut the head off. Then what I'll do is I'll set the Santa on the base relatively where I want it to go. Just can eyeball it. And there. Now I have the 2 marks where I want it to go. Pull the nails out. And then I'll get ready to drill the 2 holes here and in its feet, put it in with dowels, and I'll be all set. So here's the finished product. I think it turned out fairly well. So Santa Nutcracker, and the Nutcracker does work. This will be available for sale, and hopefully someone will enjoy this as a keepsake, as my daughter has for the past 14 years. And I wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Again, if anyone would like the plans for this, please contact me, let me know, and I can make them available.